Hey ho campers, how you doing? This is Sharon Combs with UCDI Daily. Today is Tuesday. It's a little bit before 1 o'clock. Normally between the 12 and 1 o'clock hours, I'm going to come to you on Tuesdays and Fridays here in the Think on Purpose group, and we're going to do our Lunch and Learn. So this is going to be exciting. The Lunch and Learn series we're going to start with is Leading Within Crisis. As you know, COVID has hit America. At this time, we've had enough. The initial shock of everything is worn off. We've gotten adjusted. We're actually getting acclimated to living in this flux, in this state of tension, in this state of transition. And so for those of you who are leaders, whether you're a leader at your job or whether you're a leader in your business and your community, we're going to talk about different ways that you can lead through crisis, some tried and true methods. I'll be using some of the John Maxwell teaching. I'll also be using some of the teaching from my book, Hold Your Form, which talks about emotional intelligence in its simplest format. And it talks about the stages of transition, which is change. And during crisis, there's going to be a lot of transitions. And so throughout this Lunch and Learn series, you're going to learn practical ways to maneuver through times of difficulty and adversity. I want to let you know, don't be afraid of adversity. Although it's uncomfortable and people do their utmost to avoid it, adversity can also serve as a coach, which means when you hit adverse situations, there's a type of resilience that kicks in and innovation. Things happen sometimes when your back is against the wall or when there's an obstacle presented to you and you find out that you may have more strength than you thought, than you even knew you had. Also, you may have more insight and critical thinking skills than you were aware of had you not been in a pressure situation. We're going to effectively battle distractions during times of crisis and stress. And distractions come in many forms. They can come in relationships. They can come even sometimes when there's a deficit within you, whether it's emotional, mental, or just, not having the confidence in yourself to move forward in certain areas. And so there can be some deficits there. And you can become distracted by looking for answers in places that probably cannot provide you an answer. Like you may look at the news all day long, knowing it's just going to repeat. There's nothing new in it right now. And so you begin to look at that and it begins to take up more of your time, and your conversation begins to be driven by what you heard on the news or what you saw on the news or what so-and-so said about such and such or about this method or this thing. And so before you know it, your day is gone and you haven't done anything productive. As you're leading throughout that time, you spend more of your time being a consumer of information than actually producing and encouraging your team to produce. And we're also going to look at adopting successful thinking habits so that you can think your way through any crisis. You guys know, I believe that our thoughts are designed to serve us and not vice versa. And so that's what Think on Purpose means. It means thinking deliberately, purposefully, intentionally, being instructional in your thought life, training your thoughts to serve you and not vice versa. So those are some of the things we're going to go on. Some of you guys, as we're going through this Lunch and Learn, it will not be a long Lunch and Learn. Each lesson is designed to build on the other lesson and to prompt questions to cause you to be like, what about that? And cause you to have some type of thought and generate some type of thought patterns even within yourself to draw key values, encourage discussions here on the comment section and also later, just throughout the course of your day, or maybe with your team, the people that you're leading, your direct reports, to stimulate conversation there as well. As I said, we won't be long on on the UCDI page, on some of the pages that are cut out, because we'll go directly into the group. If you are interested in being in a group, in the Think on Purpose group, let me know. Send me an email. Go to ucdileadership.com. That's www.ucdileadership.com. And I will do my utmost to get something out to you so you can have an opportunity to join the group. The group is a paid group, and there's just incredible value in it. I want to let you know too, one of the reasons I do subscribe to people joining groups, whether they're free groups or paid groups, is because you really can't see the picture when you're in the frame. If you're in the frame, you really can't see as much as you believe you can see. There may be some blind spots. There may be some areas where you're out of frame, but you don't know it because you're in frame. And sometimes having a mentor or a coach, especially someone who's vested in you, who has gone this way before, then they can be able to see some things and say some things that save you time, money, energy, and even confidence. It can just be like a real wow. And they can encourage you along the way and give you real-time tools and tips to help you. And so mentorship and coaching, that's, if you want to grow in any way, shape, or form, you will need a mentor or a coach. And so within those paid groups, you actually are able to see coaches working with individuals, moving them from one place to another, depending on what you want out of the group. If you're looking to move and have movement and see change, effective change, sustainable change as you're growing, then definitely Think on Purpose may be for you. We definitely challenge thought patterns. We don't just take things as they are. We're going to look at the origin and the intent. Where did it come from? Why do you believe it so much? Has anything challenged that thought process? And so look at the groups, because when you're in the picture, you can't see the frame. There are invisible boundaries that people have. We discover those things. Also with the boundaries, you have blind spots. So with DISC, some of you know I love DISC. It's the human behavior. I love it. I love it. I love it. But there are blind spots that many of us are not aware that we have. And so learning those blind spots helps us to navigate the blind spots, helps us to navigate those who are close to us, who are in our circle of love and influence. It helps us to be able to communicate with them more effectively without leaving a trail of bodies or a trail of misunderstandings, a trail of blood. You're not having to spend all of your time undoing misunderstandings, because you're able to have an understanding from the beginning based on blind spots and based on personalities and based on preference as it relates to communication style. Also with a mentor, you want to make sure that they're trained eyes, that they're vested in you. And that's what Top Group does. It gives you access not only to the systems and processes that are successful and practical, it gives you access to trained eyes and people who are invested in you. But that's enough of that. Let's go ahead and get into this lunch and learn, leading through crisis. The first step we want to do is we want to define a crisis. Like right now, we could say a crisis is, excuse me, is COVID. COVID-19 hitting America. That's a crisis. That is a crisis. Now, once we describe a crisis, it is an intense time of difficulty requiring a decision that will be a turning point. I'm going to say that one more time. It's an intense time of difficulty requiring a turning point. And with COVID-19, we have seen several turning points. So leading through this time of crisis, I want to encourage you to just take some time, get you a sticky note, get you one of these papers right here. These are clean sheets. They're great. You can write on them with dry erase. They adhere to the board, to the walls. They don't leave anything on your wall. It doesn't remove paint. But right in the middle, just put COVID-19, or right at the top, put COVID-19, and then just do your line down, make a line like an organizational chart, make lines from it. And what you will see are many crises associated with it. COVID-19 was a healthcare crisis, and based on the healthcare crisis, it also created educational crises because people were unable to go to school. Since they were unable to go to school, that meant that people who had to go to work now didn't have a place for their children to go. So now they had to go to daycares, but a lot of the daycares were also shut down due to this health crisis, not conference. And because of one crisis, what happened was it created many crises in different areas. You began to see crises in the, even in like the industrial unit, where some of the industry factories began to create masks, began to use the tools that they have and repurpose them toward creating masks. Some just shut down, some furloughed many people. Some hospital workers were furloughed. So many people have been furloughed and laid off. Definitely millions of individuals have lost jobs and lost revenue, lost income, which creates separate crisis. And so now, because those individuals aren't allowed to work, that creates a crisis in the places where those individuals will spend their money, whether that is a grocery store, whether that is the movie theaters. It's creating now crisis in the social and entertainment industry. And so we want to define a crisis because it's that intense time of difficulty requiring a decision that will be a turning point. A lot of people are still looking at the healthcare like, well, when the crisis is slowed down or contained within the healthcare industry, then all of these other industries will go back to normal. And that's not the case. And so when you're leading in a time of crisis, you don't want to wait. You don't want to just run out there and jump ad hoc either, but you don't want to wait on several other things to line up, because you have individuals who are waiting on you to lead. And so when you lead in a time of crisis, you want to stay strong, you want to stay steady, you want to be a source, a focal point that your team can look to and take courage from. It doesn't mean you have to know all the answers, but it means you are holding your form. Again, we're going to do some teachings out of the book, Hold Your Form, along with these John Maxwell teachings. We'll combine them all. You want to be able to hold your form so that your direct reports can look to you and find direction, instruction, consistency. In an inconsistent time, crisis is inconsistent. So they're going to look to you for some type of consistency, some type of steadiness, some type of coherence. There's a harmony in what you do, and you're not breaking. You're not breaking. It's not one thing one day, one thing another day. Your emotions are not high here, low here, forward here, backward here. You want to be able to be a steady focal point for your team so that they can look to you, and based on your stance, your posture, your position, they're able to hold their form too and focus on the task at hand. And so in leading through a crisis, that's what you want to do there. One of the questions I want you to be able to answer, if you will, please just put it in the chat box, or you can write it, like I said, on your note paper, wherever you're doing. Why do you think crisis makes it easier to distinguish a good leader from a bad leader? Some people be like, there's no such thing as a bad leader. Okay, why do you think it's easier during a crisis to distinguish between a good leader and a bad leader? We'll go over that answer tomorrow. I want you to define what constitutes a crisis and why, based on the description I just shared with you. What constitutes a crisis and why? Why does that constitute a crisis? And also, I would like for you to think, what experience do you have in leading during a crisis? You may say, well, none. I've never been part of a pandemic, but maybe you've been in the military. Maybe you've been, for those of you in the medical field, maybe you've been in a department where the whole department flooded and you had to navigate leadership in that area, or your chillers went out and all of a sudden you had to reprocess everything. You had to redo everything within that department because something went out that damaged the integrity of sterilization, or the integrity of the instruments, or the integrity of whatever product you had in there. So even if it's not a pandemic, there is some type of crisis that you have led through, that you've gone through. It could be something as simple, not simple. It could be something as close to home as navigating different personalities in your home, within the home structure. Maybe there's a lot right here during COVID-19. There are a lot of people who are spending a lot more time together within a framework, within a 1,500, 2,500, 3,000 square foot framework. And whereas previously everyone had a different place to go, whether school, to work, to the company, working out, to the gym, like people had time that they could go and do different things. And now for over 2 months, you've been in one spot consistently. And so there may be experience that you have during a time of crisis that you may not have been aware of. And so I just wanted to share that with you all, that you have had an opportunity to lead through crisis. It may not be a pandemic that you're leading through, but you have had that opportunity. And so think about that. Think about your experience that you've had leading through a crisis. Think about other times that you've been able to lead through crisis. Think about, what should I say here? Think about times that you've had to do conflict resolution. Those are mini crises, but it's still a conflict that you had to work within to solve. Problem-solving skills, mediation, being a peacemaker, bringing the olive branch. There are times that you actually have had to work within a crisis, and maybe it wasn't a pandemic, but it still was a crisis, and there's some skills that you got from that. And so I want you to think about that as well here in the Lunch and Learn. I think that's all I want to go over today. I'm going to rehash some of that. You want to define what a crisis is, and a crisis is intense. If you're in a crisis, more than likely, unless you're military or Navy SEAL and you've been, a police officer, there's something you've been trained in, some type of CAPE model, creating a positive environment to where you are able to remain calm when everything else is, at extremes and volatile, unstable, but you're able to remain calm during that time. If you have done that, then maybe you're trained for that. But outside of that, I want you to recognize if it's a crisis and you're not in a profession that trains you for it, more than likely your emotions will be high as well. And so you want to be able to be aware of your emotions, navigate those emotions. You don't only want to make decisions based off emotions. You want to be sure that during a crisis, your emotions are not driving your entire vehicle. You still want to have something that's objective, something that can pull and use credible resources. During a crisis, you want to listen. You want to decide where you're going to listen. You want to decide what media outlets are going to be the sources that you use. You want to decide what voice of counsel. You want to decide your framework and your base prior to just going in any direction. You don't want to just take information from anywhere because those places may not be vetted. And so in leading during a crisis, make sure that the information you're receiving is credible information. Make sure it's not information that already has a predisposition toward a certain thing, a pre-agenda that it's wanting to support. Leading throughout a crisis means you want to get sound information and make a sound decision so that your team can work under a sound umbrella. And so we're going to some more of those things. I hope that you guys will answer those questions. Bring those questions. Friday, we'll continue this leading through crisis. And again, throughout this leading through crisis thing, you are going to get practical tips that will help you lead through the crisis. You're going to find out ways to vet thinking patterns to make sure that the thoughts that are governing your actions are sound thoughts and that they are based on credible information. And you're going to be able to effectively battle distractions. Do not let the news be your best friend. Do not let what happened, what just happened be your best friend. Do not, for this, no shade, I enjoy TikTok, but do not let TikTok take up the majority of your day. You want to be sure to be a focal point for your team so that your direct reports and the people who are looking to you, whether they're colleagues or whether they're your direct reports, the focal point, so that as they're looking at you, they can see some steadiness, some stability, and you being stable and you being able to hold your form, they will be able to work more steadily toward the goal that they're having. We're going back into business now. Things are past 25%. We're almost up to 50%. We're about to start getting and hitting that place where commerce and commercialism is about to go right back to, not right back, but going, it's going to have the volume that it had before. There'll be some differences in supply chain. There'll be some differences in how we go about doing business. Globally, the marketplace has shifted, but the volume and the work will increase. And so as a leader and leading through this time of crisis, you want to be able to hold your form so that your unit, your team can follow you and they can trust in your competency and in your confidence and in your consistency to be able to continue to lead them. If you don't know and you're ad hoc, your team is going to mirror the behaviors and the stance and the posture and the position that you take on, and then they will be ad hoc. And it's a lot harder to herd a bunch of cats and sheep and cattle that don't have a common direction, so you want to be able to hold your form so that when they look to you, you can have a response. It doesn't mean you have to have all the answers. I understand this pressure, but this is leadership. Leadership comes with pressure. And that's why you are the leader, because you're able to handle it. My name is Sharon Combs. I'm with UCDI Leadership, a subsidiary of Do Something Daily. This has been our Tuesday Lunch and Learn. I will see you this Friday. Again, anytime from 12:30 to 1 o'clock, we'll get in and we'll do this Lunch and Learn. This is part of just the benefit of being in the Think on Purpose group. Again, why you want to be in a group is because groups actually give you the synergy, the camaraderie. It's a safe forum for you to see leadership tips and practices and processes and systems that work. It's a safe place for you to ask questions, and it gives you mentorship and a coach that's vested in you with systems, processes that are proven, vested in you, able to help you see blind spots without blame, able to help you have tools to help you navigate blind spots, because you cannot see the picture when you're in the frame. You cannot. Y'all have a great day. Work well. May this week be successful for you.